I am Bertrand Rouet. I'm 48 years old and 11 times French champion, certified cane and stick combat instructor, president of the Cane and Stick National Committee, associated to the Savate French Federation and associated disciplines, as well as French team trainer. I present you Francis Bareil. He is 51 years old and 6 times French champion, combat cane and stick instructor and also trainer of competitors. The cane and stick are both tools that have traveled in time and cultures. We find them in the Egyptians in low reliefs as an instrument or symbol, or in France in the 17th and 18th centuries as a complement to garments. At the beginning of the 19th century, this activity is integrated as a combat sport in military schools, where it was used as a cheaper and less dangerous weapon. In the second half of the 19th century, masters such as Clermont and others turned this practice into a civilian discipline. In that moment, it joins the Savate French boxing, and in the training rooms, we find together the cane and stick and the French savate. Master Clermont codified for the first time a complete cane technique at the end of the 19th century. Between 1920 and 1970, this activity was not very much practiced, and it had to wait till a new push organized by Sari Gomez and Conjat, who set a new codification that kept the historical fundamental criteria, but turning it into a more modern and sportive discipline, encouraging the international competition. Nowadays, the discipline is at its best, with a World Champion tournament celebrated in 2004 and the European tournaments in 2006. You will discover it is an activity with huge choreographic and expressive possibilities. We have a very strict and basic criteria, but based on them, everything is possible. We will explain the basis that will allow you to create your own game dynamics. We have divided this work into 5 different parts. In the first part, we will find a combat cane presentation. At the end, a brief introduction to the stick. In the future, we will record another video on the latter. Next, we will present the combat zone, and in third place, we will see the simple offensive and defensive techniques. In fourth place, we will study the elaborated techniques to end up with the beginnings of the technical tactical aspect. as I've explained previously, is a weapon loaded with history and 100% French. It is a 95 centimeters long and it weighs between 100 and 110 grams for competition. For training, heavier weapons can be used. Its wood comes from the chestnut tree. It is quite slight and it breaks when the strike is very violent, due to safety reasons. Formerly, materials used were diverse, as dogwood and walnut. Strikes are lateral in this way. The itch strikes with the lunge type tip are forbidden by historical and safety reasons. It is mandatory that the strike must be carried out with the tip, with the last fourth of the cane. This way, this is right, this is wrong. Next, we will see the target, the strike goals. To the sides of the head, here and here. In the upper part of the head, here. Behind the head is forbidden. The neck is also forbidden. Then we have the flanks, just for men, from the armpit till the waist. Here, here. The back is forbidden. Next, the legs, lower part, above the ankle and below the knee. Here, the tibia. The same on the other side. The back part is also allowed. The knee, thighs, genitals, and feet are forbidden targets. That's all. Now we will study the combat area. Competitors evolve in a circular area of 9 meters in diameter, with a referee at the center and the judges distributed at a distance around the combat area. Strike validation is carried out lifting each competitor's color flag, yellow and blue. Competitor use padded protection, helmet, and integral protection. Now we will move on to the techniques. In this third part of the video, we will start with the guard stance. As a reference, we place ourselves in front of the opponent and we move the leg back, the one opposite to the hand seizing the weapon. The forwarded foot is oriented toward the opponent. It is a lightly flexed stance, flexible, with the body weight equally distributed on both legs. The support is carried out on the front part of the foot, but not only on the tip. This guard is very often reversed because we often use the right hand as much as the left hand. We should be able to alternate between the right guard and the left guard. We'll see the cane offensive techniques now. There are 6 strikes. We have 4 vertical strikes and 2 horizontal strikes. Each cane strike has 2 different phases. The arm phase, or strike preparation, and the development phase, or hitting the target. For these 2 phases, there are 4 basic approaches. In the arm phase, the practitioner should pass his hand behind shoulders level before throwing the strike. The second approach is to respect the rotation level, either horizontal or vertical. The third approach is the final strike position, where the cane is an extension of the arm, with the open shoulders. Let us see the final position. Cane, arm, and open shoulders. The fourth approach is a full lunge, obligatory when attacking the opponent's legs. The full movement is obligatory. We must have the tight lower part parallel to the floor and the backward leg stretched. Let's see it. We have the forward leg flexed and the backward leg stretched. This resistance is obligatory for safety reasons. From the 70s, It is also for the strikes not to be oblique,
oblique,
but
que ce
rather
soit le plus
as horizontal
horizontal
or vertical
ou
as
verticaux
possible.
possible.
We go
Je
back to the
reviens sur le
first
premier coup
horizontal strike,
horizontal
the
qui est
lateral
latéral
external.
extérieur. Donc
We
je commence
started with the
par
arm
l'armée.
one.
La
This
position
is the
d'armée,
position with the
c'est ici,
horizontal
c'est-à-dire
cane
que la
directed
canne
toward the opponent,
reste dans l'axe de combat vers le partenaire. Je
movement
développe derrière
backwards
sur un même
in the
plan
same
et je
level, and we go
reviens
back on the same
sur la
target.
cible. Donc
Arm.
armée,
I develop
développement
and I
et
strike.
je reviens sur la cible comme je le disais tout
We
à
hit
l'heure
with the last fourth of the
avec le
cane.
dernier quart de la canne. C'est-à-dire que
This
ici,
strike will
c'est pas
not
bon.
be right.
Voilà
That is
pour
all for the
le
lateral
premier coup, le
external
latéral
strike.
extérieur. Rotation
Shoulders
des
and
épaules
pelvis rotation.
et du bassin.
This is a
Ça,
bad
c'est normal
turn due to the
avec une
lumbar
torsion lombaire.
torsion.
Donc on
You
accompagne
should
les
accompany the
épaules
shoulders with the
avec le bassin.
pelvis.
Le
The slip for
glissement,
this
la rotation
rotation
se
is
fait au
made
niveau
with the
des
feet.
appuis. Je
Again,
refais, garde,
guard,
armée,
arm,
développement,
development, and impact.
pause ici. Ensuite, évidemment,
This
ce
strike can be
poids peut se
performed
décliner
at
sur
three
les
different
trois niveaux
levels.
différents, c'est-à-dire que j'ai ici
Here to the
la
head,
tête,
the
en
flank,
flanc pour les hommes
only for
uniquement,
men,
pour les femmes c'est
for when
interdit,
it is forbidden,
et en jambe.
and to the leg.
On refait,
Again, here, here, and here.
là,
Again,
plus rapidement avec le
quicker.
crâne, là, 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 le plus vite. Voilà.
Very good. Second
Deuxième
horizontal
horizontal
strike
qui est
by
du
the
côté
inner guard,
intérieur de la
cross
canne,
lateral.
c'est le latéral
First
croisé.
phase
Donc,
for the
première
arm,
phase, l'armée,
the cane
comme tout à
oriented
l'heure,
towards
la
the
canne
opponent
reste face à
in a
l'adversaire l'axe de
horizontal
combat.
level.
Deuxième
Second
partie,
phase, development.
développement. Vous voyez
There
qu'il
is
y a
a
une
bust and
rotation
pelvis
du buste et du
rotation
bassin
with
qui
the feet's
s'effectue
help.
par les appuis.
Here.
C'est la parade. Là.
As the
Évidemment,
previous
cette frappe,
strike,
comme l'autre frappe qu'on a montrée
we
tout
can
à l'heure,
attack at three
peut
different
être
levels.
effectuée sur les trois niveaux différents, c'est-à-dire
Head,
tête, flanc
flank,
et jambe.
and leg.
On refait,
Again, head,
flanc
flank, and
et
leg.
jambe.
Later, we will
Ensuite,
see
évidemment, ces deux
how
mouvements
these two horizontal
horizontaux, comme on verra
strikes
tout à
can be
l'heure aux
linked.
entraînements, peuvent
The
se
combination
succéder,
would be this
sans
way.
souci. À toi. Merci.
Now we will see the four vertical strikes. The first one is the circular and downward one, kind of a windmill that will hit head upper part. We have the two phases, arm with the hand behind the shoulders lever and turn on the target. This movement is not allowed. There is only one go and one return. For the hand movement, if you have problems to carry out the windmill, you can start with this position. You swing the weapon and you recover it. Cane down, grab between the index and the thumb. We swing the cane back and we recover it with the hand. Now we will perform the windmill movement with the wrist. We let the weapon go before and we recover it. We let it drop, rotating the wrist outwards, this way, and we recover it thanks to its impulse. This way we carry out the windmill movement. Now we will do the complete strike in the arm phase. Arm and strike. But now quicker.
Ensuite,
Next, we
nous
have the
avons le
inverse
mouvement inverse
movement
qu'on appelle l'enlever.
before
Là,
we
on avait
perform the front
mouliné
windmill.
avant. Maintenant, on a le
Now we
mouliné
will do it
arrière.
backwards.
Donc là, on
We
projette la
project the
canne vers
cane,
l'arrière, on
we
ouvre
open the
la
hand
main,
and we
et on
recover the weapon
récupère par une
before
rotation de la main.
rotating the hand.
On
Again, we
projette la
project the
canne
weapon
vers
back.
l'arrière, on ouvre la
We
main,
open the hand
et on la
and we recover the
récupère par
weapon at
une
the front by
rotation
turning the
de la
hand.
main devant. Ce
With this
moulinet
windmill,
va
we
viser
exclusively attack the lower opponent's area.
exclusivement la partie basse. C'est-à-dire que c'est un mouvement que l'on
We arm the
arme
strike
également
and
et que
we
l'on projette
fully
avec le
throw
poids
it
sur
toward the
la partie
leg.
basse. Simplement là. Pour
With
le
the
briser
previous
tout à
downward
l'heure, une
strike,
seule surface de
we only
frappe
hit the
tête.
head,
Pour l'enlever,
and with the
une seule
upward,
surface de
only
frappe
the
du
leg.
Donc,
Again.
l'enlever. Donc là, maintenant, on a le troisième
Let's see
mouvement
the third
offensif
offensive vertical movement. The
vertical,
high cross
avec les
strike.
épaulettes.
Arm position as
d'arrêt, comme
before,
tout à l'heure.
with the stretched arm.
La canne
The cane
vers
guided
la
toward the
ceinture, vers
opponent,
le partenaire,
between his
entre ses
legs,
jambes. Et
and
retour
movement
sur le
toward the
dessus de la
upper
tête.
part of the head.
Armé,
Armed
retour.
and turn,
Armé,
armed and
retour.
turn, but now quicker.
Et
Now we
ensuite,
have the
on a
inverse
le mouvement
movement,
inverse, qui est le
the
croisé
cross low
On
strike.
part de la position
We
de la
start from the
garde,
guard's position.
on lève
We
le
lift the
banc,
arm and we
on
lower
descend
it
dans un
with a
mouvement
vertical movement
vertical,
into the opponent's
en
legs.
position basse.
Guard's position,
Garde,
vertical movement and low position.
en position basse.
Now quick.
Voilà. Salut.
You will notice that the salute in French combat cane involves the linking of two specific vertical movements, rotating down strike, l'enlevé, followed by crossing down strike, le croisé bas. These two strikes previously described are performed during the salute, being unarmed and in a frontal position. The salute, beginning and ending, are characterized by a horizontal position for the arm holding the weapon.
Donc maintenant, on évoquait dans les
We have
critères
mentioned the full lunge
techniques
obligatoriness
l'obligation de la
when we
forme
attack the legs,
lorsque
to
l'on
only
frappe en
perform
jambe,
horizontal
de
and
façon à
vertical
avoir des
strikes.
coups verticaux ou horizontaux.
I remind
Donc,
you
la
with the
forme, comme
position
évoqué tout à l'heure,
for the
je
full lunge. We
rappelle,
bend the
on a
knee
ici
of the forward leg,
le
keeping the
quadriceps, la cuisse
quadriceps
à
parallel to the
l'horizontale
floor,
et la jambe
and the
arrière
backward
tendue,
leg
avec le
stretched,
pied qui
the
se
forwarded
dirige
foot
vers le
toward the
partenaire,
opponent,
et ici
and the
le
backward
pied
foot
respecte
keeping the
les lignes
initial
des
guard's
appuis
position.
de départ de la garde.
The
C'est-à-dire
position would be
qu'on est dans cette
this,
position
just this way.
ici, là c'est bon, on n'est
This
pas
other
comme ça.
position is
Ça,
wrong.
mauvais,
We lose
à
balance.
cause de l'équilibre.
The opening
Et
of
à
the
cause d'une bonne
pelvis
ouverture du bassin
allow
qui
us
va
to
bloquer
block
l'équilibre extérieur.
the strikes on the outside.
Ici, la garde, la France,
Now Francis will show it to us. Full lunge.
pantalon.
Perform several attacks in a row, please.
Là, on progresse un peu. Là, la garde croisée. Voilà. Nous avons
We
également
also
la
have the
fente
backward full
arrière,
lunge,
où
in
le
which the
poids du
body
corps va
weight
se fixer
relies mainly on the backward leg.
sur la jambe arrière.
We're going to see it.
Exécution de la fente arrière. Vas-y. Fente arrière, ne bouge plus. On a toujours les
Approaches
mêmes
are
critères.
always the same ones.
La jambe
Flex
fléchie,
leg, horizontal
la
tight,
cuisse à l'horizontale
and the
et
other
la
leg
jambe
stretched.
tendue. Redresse-toi.
Now
On va
we
alterner
alternate the
maintenant
full
fente
lunge
avant, fente
and the
arrière.
backward
Différent.
lunge.
Fente avant,
Full one,
fente arrière.
backward one.
Fente avant, fente arrière.
To balance the bust in the forwarded lunge, we lean slightly forwards. Not this way because we would damage our knee. We remain almost upright, with most of the weight on the forwarded leg, but loading some on the backward one, to be able to move this way during combat. The lunge is not the endpoint of a linkage, but rather an intermediate position of transition. After going through the simple offensive techniques, now we're going to study the simple defensive techniques, contained in two different blocks: the stop and the dodges. The simple stop that protects us from vertical, horizontal strikes. They are this way. They protect both the flank and the head at the same time. You will be able to observe that we slightly incline the cane inside so the opponent's weapon doesn't reach our hand or cross our guard. Next, we have the external stop that protects our leg. The principle is the same one. We incline the cane toward the guard's interior so that it doesn't hit us in the hand or cross the guard. We also have the high stop that protects us from vertical attacks. It is the same principle. We incline our weapon outwards for his attack to slip outwards. Now we can combine the different stops in front of chain attacks. You can see that each stop is the beginning of a response attack. This position is almost identical to the arm face that we have studied before. Now we'll see the cross stops. By the guard, inside, the principle is always the same one. The stop protects these two areas, and we slightly incline the weapon for low attacks. This stop protects our tibia in front of his attacks. The interest of cross stops is to rotate the bust in front of the opponent's attack and to get a favorable position for our response. To protect us from the cervical strikes, we have the cross stop in the head, always inclining our weapon outwards. Cross stop. Now we'll link attacks and stop. Now we will see the dodges in the first place. The lateral dodges called boxer's dodges. We carry out a full lateral feet and body movement to favor our later response. Then we have the retreat dodges. Also with a movement backwards to allow our response. Avoid these other type dodges because they are anti-physiologic and they don't allow the continuity of our action. We have the low dodges. If we want to make them more operational, we can easily transform them into full lunges. They are also the jumping judges. Later, we'll see how we can add this type of dodges to our counterattacks. Continue with the simple linkages. We are going to carry out a simple exercise, and more or less static, that consists in each one of us attacking alternatively with a strike. There will be a small speed change, accelerating movements little by little, depending on the partner's level. Now the same linkage type in crescendo, but now with two strikes, cross lateral strike and cross high strike. Now we will see several strike linkages with three serial techniques. We will perform cross high strike, a lateral cross strike to the flank, and a low cross strike. Now we will link three other techniques: upward circular strike, high cross strike, and low external strike. To finish the simple technique section, and before moving on to the elaborated techniques, I will perform a manipulation that puts at stake all we have already shown you, and that it will present what we will see ahead. It is about improvised free linkages called shadow or exercise in shade. You will notice that the unarmed hand moves freely so that the fighter is able to keep his balance. Since the end of the 20th century, for psychological reasons linked to the body's ability to move, the fighters are no longer required to keep this hand in a fixed position and behind their backs. The rule governing this unarmed hand movement freedom stipulates that such movement may not hide any targets. Now we approach the fourth part, the offensive and defensive complex techniques, starting with the turns over oneself. In the shadow demonstration that I just carried out, you have been able to observe enough turns. It is a circular strike around oneself, and we have two ways of doing it, with a large full body movement or on a single support, either the forwarded leg or the backward leg. We start with the turns including large movement. Strike up to the head. Strike to the leg. Now the second turn type. There are turns on a single support and a foot on an axis. In these turns we take advantage of the body weight fall to accelerate movement. I rotate with the forwarded leg as an axis. Now turn on the backward leg as an axis. Now we'll see the turn's details. The starting point for these turns is the arm position that we have already explained. It would be this way for a right-handed person, an external turn to the right. We arm one from an external lateral strike. We turn underneath the cane that stays up, aiming the opponent, and we finish with this striking movement. Arm, we go underneath and we strike. The same thing on the other side. We arm, we go underneath and we strike. We arm, we go underneath and we strike. This type of circular strikes are forbidden. This is not allowed. We also have other armed ones that can originate turns. For instance, the arm for the cross-high strike. We arm, we go over the cane, we turn and we strike. We arm, we go over the cane, we turn and we strike. The same thing for the circular downward strike. We can make it in two ways, and we end up with cross strike to the head, this way. throw the arm, and we carry out a turn. We can also introduce a pause. We stop the cane, we go over it, and we strike again. We go over it and we strike. Finally, we have the turns ending up in a circular downward strike. They are very original. Now we will see different simple turn linkages. Now, second linkage. Third linkage. Fourth linkage. Continuing with the elaborated techniques, we'll now speak about the weapon hand changes and guards changes. We will start with the simple ones to move forward little by little till the acrobatic hand changes and the ones included in the turns. The simplest hand change is carried out in the arm phase. The hand change needs a guard change to make it simple at the beginning. We will stay in the front position. Lateral external arm hand change, and it is transformed into an interior cross strike. Arm lateral external hand change, and we have a lateral cross strike. The other way around, lateral cross strike, hand change, and we have a lateral external strike. Once you dominate these hand changes, you will be able to add guard changes. I am in guard, and during the hand change, I change the guard. It can be done while going back or going forward. This way, going back, but I can also make it moving forward. Now see other simple hand changes. Here, from the arm phase of the crossed high strike, I can transform it into a circular upward strike, high cross strike. I change hand and it becomes a circular upward strike. Combinations are huge in number, and each one of us can find numerous untold hand changes. Let us see more complex hand changes. Simple combination movement of circular downward strike and high cross strike. First, in a sense, it is the circular downward strike, followed by the high cross strike to the head. This last strike shortens in its extension to be able to carry out a flowing movement. Now the other way round. First the circular upward strike, followed by the low cross strike. The strike's extension should be shortened to be able to obtain a flowing movement.
etc. Enlever, on essaie de
Circular
faire
upward
ailleurs.
strike.
Enlever,
We lift the weapon and we
et on
look
va
for this
chercher dans cette
position.
position-là, qui est un petit peu complexe, je veux dire.
We change the
On
guard
va
and the
changer
circular
garde,
upward blow.
enlever, on
We
remonte
lift the
deux par
weapon
la
to
crosse
connect
droite,
with a low
et
cross
on
strike and we change hand this way. Flowing movement is this way.
ainsi.
This is already a more complex hand change. Hand change is carried out when the cane is behind, not at the front. Now another hand change. We connect downward circular strike and high cross strike. Here we change hand to carry out the downward circular strike by the other side. In each hand change, we will also carry out a guard's change. Now we see another movement that allows us a hand change. Downward circular strike and we withdraw the cane below the arm this way. Downward strike and we withdraw it under the arm. To properly throw the strike to deceive the opponent, it is like a feint. We try here, we turn the bust, we withdraw the cane and we change the grabbing hand to throw a downward low strike, this way underneath the arm. Downward strike underneath the arm and strike.
Brise sous le bras, la brise.
Continuing with the movement of withdrawing the weapon under the arm, we take the cane by the back, we grab it this way, and from there we can throw a lateral external strike or another. The movement should be carried out this way, arm and strike. We can also execute a strike this way, without lifting the cane, to change the hand from behind, and to connect with a high cross strike. Again a feint. The weapon doesn't end up passing below the arm. Hand change and high cross strike. Now we will show you more complex hand changes, those including turns. We will not go into details, we will simply show you the possibilities. We'll start with simple movements and will slowly increase complexity. First, hand change. We repeat. Now from the back. Now dropping the cane in the air and picking it up with the other hand, and I recover it this way. Low strike. We now move on to the complex defensive movements. First, the complex stops, here below, to stop a strike. It can be combined with a response consistent of a cross strike to the head. Now, complex stop by the back. It is an acrobatic technique. Now, stop above the shoulder. We can later connect with a low cross strike or a lateral one, this way. Let us see the inverted stop, in front of external strike, this way. There are more acrobatic stops, as those performed while being crouched and others. Now we will move on to study the dodges. We will perform them by combining them with counter-attack responses. We'll start with two simple examples. First, a forward leg, backward movement, and response to the head. Now we will see the jumping dodge, with response strike to the opponent's head. Now we will see the jumping dodge with response to the head, but adding a second response with a strike to the leg. In this chapter, we have seen some techniques a bit more complex with moving elements we should later combine in competition. In the fifth part of the video, we will study some technical, tactical notions. Before moving on to the tactical basics, we will start by explaining two fundamental rules for competition. In addition to the Lunge's validation criteria that we already explained, the first rule for competition says that we should respect the stop principle or dodge and response. If we are not the first attacker, before responding we should stop or avoid his attack. Stop, and now I can respond, and to throw my strike. Let us see what it shouldn't be done. I get his strike and then I attack. During the lapse of time, when the participant gets a strike, he's out of combat. He's momentarily defeated. If I get a strike, there should be a break of rhythm. A moment later, I will be able to already take up again my attack. I can counter-attack while I receive his attack. The second rule is the one called anti-cane. Since practitioners have the obligation of hitting with the last foot of the cane, the practitioner cannot move towards his opponent when he's throwing an attack. The attack wouldn't be valid, but our maneuver is unsportsmanlike. Therefore, we cannot move toward an attack. It is forbidden. We can dodge Move but not move forward. There is a case in which the anti-game is allowed, and it is when we carry out a counter-attack. Let us see an example. This is anti-game, but I can go on and launch an attack from behind. This is allowed. Let us see another case, facing an attack with turn. This would be an anti-game, but if I carried out my attack here, it is allowed. The first technical tactical element is the movement in depth that we call voyage. It allows us to surprise the opponent by moving to his back. It is similar to what we previously explained. The goal is to move behind the opponent at the time of his attack. Let us see an example. This is an exercise that will usually include a counter-attack from us to avoid the anti-game. We're going to repeat it. Now we will see a technical tactical exercise that we can practice as a game without weapons, to learn how to find the appropriate moment, the timing. For these long movements to work, we should come as closer as possible to the opponent. If we go too far away, he will be able to attack us easily. We move forward, passing so near him that we will have to turn the bust not to touch him. Contact is prohibited in competition. He launches me an attack, I move forward, and now I turn. I arm the strike and I strike. The goal is to go by the opponent very closely. Let us see it in fast speed. Now the second technical tactical element, the feints. They are classified according to two categories. The level changes. In those we feint a strike to the legs, but we rise to strike the head, or the other way around, we start from a strike to the head, but we bend over to attack below. Now the second category, the strike changes. We start with a cross strike to the head, but we transform it into a lateral cross strike to the flank. I transform my attack and I hit his flank. He attempts a high stop, but I hit his unprotected flank. Let us see another strike transformation. For example, starting from an external lateral. We throw the external lateral that it is usually horizontal, but we transform it into a downward circular strike, a vertical strike. You have just seen some principal, technical, tactical notions. In later works, we will approach the more complex phases. In the presentation, I talked to you about the stick, a weapon that is also part of our activities. It is not practiced in competition due to its perils. We will perform a demonstration in which you will see that techniques are the same ones as those of the cane. They are adapted to this larger weapon that we seize with two hands. Thank you very much, and we hope you will also be practitioners soon.
Oh.